I was in Brixton.
Go on.
This is mid-90s, and I was walking, and there was a shop called Red Records.
Okay.
Just off Brixton, just yeah, Brixton High Road. And as I'm hearing, all of a sudden, I hear this bass line pump out,
Yeah.
and it was the intro of a Anne Nesby tune called "Can I Get a Witness?" And the way that bass just came, I was just like, "Yo, this is different." So I went back into the shop and I asked them. So then I bought it, and then I met a next guy as well, who was like, yeah, there's a lot of gospel house.
Sure. Affinity Xtra, be extra.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not necessarily represent the views of Affinity Xtra.
Yeah, people. This is the boy here, Roger Moore here. I am with a guest. We are doing I keep saying DDD because I'm just looking at. There's many phrases. It's changed and evolved. Where I'm looking back at the urban gospel in inverted commas, but now I've become to love the sub genres of gospel music. You know, that's how it's kind of finding out that is going from rap, which we primarily looked at, and also we looked at a bit of dancehall with Rico, and then also there were other elements that wasn't allowed to play in church. We wouldn't believe a bit of R&B wasn't allowed in church either still, and we all in the 90s actually outside developing our craft in evangelism. Many of us were, and started this journey. I thought that, you know, I knew it all. Not knew it all, knew a lot. I really didn't know a lot, you know. I really didn't know. Just talking to people, and one thing I want to recognize is the efforts, the people who are not in the gospel scene right now, whose story isn't told, isn't celebrated, and this journey is about that. And this is the first phase of gathering notes of a generation that were probably born in the 60s going into 70s, and we were I would say the starters of urban gospel in the UK. And what you see now is UK rap and all these different styles. Now it started in the 90s with some great people, and we had to fight the church to do it, guys. We had to fight, man. That struggle's real. But I am with a guest that we always said this is how we pronounce his name. This is how we would say his name. It's DJ Fitz from Bristol. You can't split the two, you know what I'm saying? It's DJ Fitz from Bristol, you know what I mean? There's no from anywhere else. DJ Fitz from Bristol, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's how we used to say his name. And DJ Fitz, it was known back then. It was the house stuff now, and it was like the stuff where people go, You really, you know, because obviously usually people do dancehall back then and reggae and whatever, but it got deep. So how you go church and know about this house stuff, like, still, you know what I mean? But either way, I have to mention the event, and we hopefully got receipts about this. I'm doing some research about this, and I might have the tape of the night. I was doing PA for Shekinah, and it was around about 2000, 2001, and they said, yeah man, right, because yeah man, we got DJ Fitz on the bill. I said, okay, cool. I'm like, how on earth is DJ Fitz going to fit on this night? So DJ Fitz come. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but he had vinyls. I'm sure he had vinyls out there still, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So man called me some big vinyls, you know what? A man is just skipping the CDs still, yeah? So I'm going, he's a proper DJ. How's this going to work? So I'm thinking, you know, where you getting your music? What gospel? Listen, when the man dropped the rhythm, he got this place with a ram. And I just saw that, like, the enjoyment level just go boom straight. It was absolutely amazing, and I'm gonna find that mix, you know what I mean? I might get a million views off it. I get the rights for it. Yo, get claim ownership, man. I get some views. Affinity Xtra, man. Yo, put that on the radio. But no, that was real epic, and that was my first interaction with DJ Fitz. And DJ Fitz, the one more thing I will mention, and then he's gonna fill in all the gaps. It makes sense. For me, and I will say blatantly again, is the pinnacle of BBC Radio for black expression. I know we are in Affinity Xtra, and you might think we teased that from somewhere. And we did. I think Xtra was referring to black music, and DJ Fitz was on black music, where they did put the effort in to actually seek a presenter in the UK to present gospel music on a Sunday morning on BBC One Extra. And Fitz got the gig, and he will tell us about all the bullets that chased after him. But no, he's gonna tell us about how that was and whatsoever, because that was massive, guys. And I don't think we've, as a gospel community, has had a presence on BBC Radio ever since that period onwards. We lost so many BBC presenters, and it was a shame. And why weren't we petitioning? But we'll get there anyway. So yeah, but DJ Fitz, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us where your people's from. Tell us your favorite. Is it jollof or rice and peas? Which one you going for, bro? Am I gonna get in trouble? You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm gonna start doing a jollof or rice and peas. But start off with, let's start off with that one. That's the easy one. Jollof or rice or peas, bro?
Both.
No, oh my God. He's being politically correct here.
Listen. No lie. I had both on my plate today already. Man's a prophet.
Listen, people, right? You can tell.
Hey, listen.
Yeah,
my wife made some beautiful jollof rice, for my daughter. It was, yeah, she's gone to entertain.
Yeah.
So we got blessed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, that is so. Listen, I do think London has a funny way of rice and peas. People kind of like jollof after a while, but if we invite up to Birmingham, bro, get reacquainted with the taste, man.
Hey, you know what, Roger? Before, lovely intro and everything, and you know what? I've got to say, even we've spoken offline and stuff like that, and it's just a blessing for you to kind of even say, I'll tell you straight, you're the first guy who's kind of said to me, Fitz, I want to hear your story. So, cool. So I just put that out there.
Yeah, man.
And it's, you know what, it dates back a long while, and I have to say, for you guys, Birmingham, I've got a lot of love for Birmingham. But I'll go into that.
Yeah.
People kind of got to know me from presenting Vibrations on One Extra. That was for 5 years. How I got started in that, it was my love for DJing. DJing and radio.
Okay.
And I'd hear people do both, and sometimes you had people that were good on radio, but they couldn't translate to live setting DJing.
True.
Both of them are two art forms, and thankfully, I think my love of DJing and then also kind of getting into radio and listening to a lot of radio. I listened to a lot of hours of radio, but I can go into that.
Yeah. Nah, that's blessed, bro. That's blessed. I think so. When let's go back to Bristol, and you're allowed to speak in a Bristolian accent. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry, bro. You got robbed. But listen, man, we have to talk about these southeast people, because they kind of destroy people's accents. But being in Bristol now, Bristol's infamous for the Bristol Carnival. St. Paul's.
Yeah.
Now, we're not assuming because your brother that you're from St. Paul's, but how far do you live from St. Paul's? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. So ironically, you know what? I actually worked on the Carnival.
Okay.
Years ago. Yeah. So I got involved with St. Paul's Carnival. For me, that period in the 90s, obviously it was going on for longer than that. I met some good people down there. We had a situation where people just would travel. It was a carnival that was for the local community.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that when they used to string up sound, it was literally, I lived about 3 to 4 miles away.
Okay.
from there. But where I was living at the time, and the way Carnival would go on. So Carnival would start. It wouldn't even be Carnival. We call it festival. So it'd be St. Paul's Festival, and it would start like midday with the Carnival procession, and then it would just carry on and on, and it would bubble, and then it would get dark. Then it would still carry on, and it would carry on after midnight. 1, 2, 3. And literally, back in the day, they used to go on until sunrise, non-stop. So you could be in Birmingham or London, and you could leave there, say, like 11 o'clock at night, and you're heading down, like, for you guys, it would be the M5, or if you're in London, it's the M4. And you'll get there, and it's like, Carnival's just nice. And it's just, the key places was Campbell Street and Brighton Street. So Brighton Street used to have, like, in the 90s, it then got, that's where the jungle and stuff used to go on. And Campbell Street, for a lot of us Bristol people, would go there. Used to have also Jashaka would come down as well. And you just had an array of sound, and Bristol, what people have to understand is there's a sizable Rastafarian community. So, Bristol, I didn't realize growing up how influential it was as a city. When I reflect and I look back and I think of the bus boycott that happened in the 60s, obviously before I was born. I didn't know, I knew the person who actually applied for the job, but I never knew them. I didn't know it was them. So I just knew them for their name. And, that was just like, only in recent years, I found that out. And I was just like, wow. So there was a lot of pioneering that would go on. A lot of Bristol would kind of do things differently. So even that whole 80s scene. So for me, yes, my roots are in gospel, but how I got to understand the whole DJ world and things like that, there was nobody doing it at the time. So you had to look what was around you. So you had groups like the Wild Bunch, and the Wild Bunch were a legendary DJ group. And out of the Wild Bunch came Massive Attack. A Massive Attack blew up in the 90s, but basically they would go to New York, they would break their, bring in different hip hop tunes and stuff like that, and they would just travel all over the place and play. And basically they took what was a Jamaican sound system culture and they just did their own thing to it as well.
No, I think so I'm gathering. So basically, were you Sunday school boy at church, or was you wasn't brought up in the church like that, or was you the Sunday school boy at church, but you had friends outside church that you knew where to go on a Saturday afternoon, or how did it work for you? Was you a person outside of church culture that came in, or somebody who learned your craft? Because I know there's musicians, I know Bristol musicians, back in the day, and you had a gospel kind of like scene. Your church got a prophecy. There's got 2 churches there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Even my he had the Wesleyan church where I grew up in. We would go there now and again. That's right in the middle of where Carnival is. Yeah, I'm saying is with the Wesleyan there. And I've never been to a gig on. I'm sure it's Jamaica Street in Bristol where there's a Elam church right there still. You know what I mean? And and I've been Bristol Carnival before, and I think Carmen had a gospel float and she kind of down, and So I was so Bristol City, but also I went there, and I purposely went there to Bristol Museum. And especially after COVID and the whole movement of Black Lives Matter, I actually realized, because I know we talk a lot about Liverpool being a slave port, but Bristol had a major part in that as well, as a major port in that time. of slavery, and there was a lot of rich people that got that people got to realize in the COVID period and the Black Lives Matter movement, that Bristol was a major part to play in as a city, as affluent English people would go and make money from slavery straight up, and it was part of that triangle, a major port in that area. Physically, it's obviously facing the Americas, and obviously Liverpool was as well, but Bristol was a major part. And sometimes we forget the deep history of Bristol when it comes to African community. But if we go back into this period now, there was a lot of people, Caribbean people, that did move there in Windrush, and set up an area. Obviously, like Handsworth, you've got, which is not a predominantly black area now, but there were St. Paul's was like, St. Paul's, when there were riots were going on, it was, I believe it was St. Paul's was where the riots were in the 80s. Was that the 80s, isn't it? Yeah, and
right.
Early 80s. I don't know if you remember that as a youth back then.
Yeah, you know what? I was a really small child, and I do vaguely remember hearing about from my family. Now, ironically, you just mentioned like Church of God of Prophecy, and that's the church I grew up in.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Patrick Vieira's, the Vieiras and all them guys. Is it Vieira? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So all those guys. So there was a lot of like people that I met growing up, and even now I can truly say, hand on heart, I've still friends with, I've still got friends that I grew up with at church from we were children. And, blessing, I think we finally managed to kind of link up in November, I think October, November.
Okay. Yeah.
And, you're thinking, and these are guys from Sunday school that used to go. And, we're all grown, I mean, we've got families and all of that. But it was just a blessing to catch up. And, you touched on the fact of Bristol's history, and that's something that I think was quite uncomfortable for people, and especially if you look at some of the street names, for example, you've got White Ladies Road in Clifton and Black Boy Hill, places like that, and those things are there and evident. And what happened, yes, people that had made their money off the back of the transatlantic slave trade, but something that was very interesting, my time during the St. Paul's Carnival, you had organizations like Bristol Merchant Ventures would want to give money, and they historically made their money off the back of the slave trade.
Yeah, man.
So what would happen, they would want to donate money to the Carnival, but the Carnival was just strictly like, no, we're not taking your money. Wow. And that was the principle. Jeez. And that's what they do. And so I think when you're down there, it's an amazing city. I have to say, even though I don't live there no more, for creativity, ultimately a city is about the people that are there. And I know, my home is London now, but the amount of people that I've met that they've moved to Bristol and they've relocated, and I get why. Yeah, I get it.
No, 100%. So you're growing up now, Church of God like style of church. We all know the style that they're coming through, and musically now are different now. Like myself, I had my skill set is more electronic music than actual. You're given a bass guitar, you got drums to jump on, you got the standards, or can you sing? And if you don't fulfill that, you're not seen as a musical creative in their space. And I think that our generation sometimes struggled because we had musical talents, but not the way that could fit service on a Sunday morning. So what kind of, now, sounds strange, my experience was my cousin, who wasn't a Christian, played Optimistic on a vinyl in front of me. And we was at college and I went to meet him, and that and he showed me his Atari ST, and he was sampling. That changed me. So it was totally outside. What was the point that actually shifted you towards not only vinyl DJing? When you come in, when you going on a Sunday, you're seeing amazing musicians. You know, some tough musicians down there. You know, in Bristol, you're tough musicians. Choirs are coming from Birmingham, London, and you're seeing all these concerts and events. What pushed you over to the electronic, I would say, expression of music?
Wow. Good question. Well, growing up, I had the influence of church music, and even now I look back at Church of God of Prophecy and just the people that came through. So your Noel Robinsons,
yeah, man,
Karen Gibsons,
come on,
musicians, Andrew Smith and Velroy Bailey. You know, they're professional musicians. Mark Walker from Leeds, incredible keyboardist. And you know, it's unfair I've mentioned those. There's so many of us. So many others, singers. Growing up, I was part of my local church choir and then district choir. So we would sing with you know, guys from Gloucester as well.
Yeah, man.
And I remember the musicians like Philip Barclay, Charles Campbell, Eddie Campbell.
Jay Campbell's my
that was the same church that Howie Mack.
Howie, yeah, of course, his dad passed in it.
That was his dad's church. You know,
oh Lord, crazy.
It was just kind of thinking, and you know, even knew Howie. You know, all of us as youths.
Yeah.
And we just kind of gravitated. I think for me, ironically, I did try a little stint at playing drums because I think that was kind of the quickest thing to learn. But I didn't really. I think for instruments, I didn't have the patience. So even my parents, they bought me a bass guitar, and it was gathering dust, to be honest. When I got my turntables, oh my days, that was different. Wow. So I think as a child, I just would, you know, listen to a lot of my sisters. My sisters used to buy records at the time.
Okay.
So I would listen to a lot of their music.
Okay, yeah.
So I was just playing it, listening to it, getting the breakdown, hearing. So even now, there's certain songs that I know exactly the ad libs, when the breakdown and all of that.
Yeah, man.
You know, because I just I just heard it as a child, and I think, you know, people now are at an advantage because they could just go online and just type, I want to hear this, and then it's just like, okay, they got into YouTube, and then it says, oh, why don't you listen to this after, or on their Spotify or Amazon, Amazon or Apple Music,
of course,
app, you know, and it will just tell them, and it's like, you might like this,
yeah.
And from my era, we listened to it, whatever outlets you could get it from, that's where you were hearing. So concerts were about people singing the tracks, the artists that from the records.
100%. Yeah.
You know, so it was like one of the big songs that the Winans did. The question is, the amount of concerts where people would sing that. And you know what? As a child, I'll give you a joke. You know, sometimes you're not hearing lyrics properly.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one, but I remember in one concert, I'm thinking they're singing the West Indies instead of the question is
the West Indies is.
The West Indies. So people, I remember some of the older church sisters would just laugh at West Indies, you know, but
oh Lord, man.
I suppose you hear what you want to hear, innit?
Listen, they had songs like, remember the days of Yay and Nay and all these songs, and you know the joke is, you had vinyls. I remember seeing my dad had vinyls of Winans, and that period of gospel, vinyls was kind of like the thing, Andre Crouch and the Hawkins,
Yeah.
people get vinyls, Tremaine Hawkins. Now, I don't want to get your sisters in trouble, but was that purely gospel vinyls did they have, or did they sneak in a few soulful tunes in there? You know, they got a little
You know what?
a little Earth, Wind and Fire.
Well, you know, it's funny because I think it's quite interesting because I was thinking about that the other day. Yes, and it's probably because of the kind of church we grew up in. You know, we have to look back and, you know, for a lot of our churches, especially, you know, coming from Caribbean or, you know, African background, we have to accept that there's some legalism that came in as well, you know, and for some, like, for example, I know, you know, you could go to some other churches that may have more diverse and they don't have that issue. And, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, my wife mentioned something the other day, and you know, it's important. It's a reminder about idols, and you know that things can become idols in your life, and you know, for some of us, music is like up there, and we kind of you know, really gravitate to that, and we've got to be mindful that we don't treat it that way, you know, and you know, it's not to say, oh, you can't listen, but it's having that balance. And you know, I did grow up in a household, it was like, oh, you know, we don't do gospel, and so that was kind of a bit of a conflict, because for me, I remember me and my sister, we'd you know, at the time, the top 40 was the biggest thing, and you wanted to know what the number one was.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, quick, listen on the radio.
Like Top of the Pops. Yo, get catch.
Yeah,
you
look at it now, and it's like, you realize, even you know, my mum will probably admit it's just like, okay, it's legalism, because I remember, you know, at the time it was like, you know, there was issues about going cinema, but then you could go and rent the same video. From what was it, Blockbuster back then? Watch the video at home, the same thing. But it's about legalism, and I think this is where man kind of messes up things. You know, 100%. Just comes in, and you know, the Bible's clear about where it says, "Let each man work out their own salvation with fear and trembling." So, for some people, they could just step foot in a club, and it's like it's no issue because they understand. But you know, for somebody else, if that's their idol, that's what they live for, then you know, maybe it's not advisable that you go. Do you know what I mean?
No, 100%. So here's a flip question, and you then. So hold a second. So obviously you painted a very similar pictures to me. Only gospel in the yard, you know what I mean? You can't get catch watching Top of the Pops. So, but obviously you hear the music through your friends at school and whatever. You do know what's going on out there still, So, we all had the first non-gospel piece of music got into the house that you sneak through. I know remember the artist. What was that? Yeah. You remember that first? I remember my first one. But we got past my dad. You remember Whitney Houston, Bodyguard? You know, Jesus, because it was because it had Jesus Loves Me on it. We sneak. He said, "Dad." We sneaked that one.
That was your excuse, yeah?
That was, and then we got in Mr. Window with Arrested Development, you know what I mean? And then we started to get the conscious, and we sneaked in everything else, and it got crazy. But what was the first one you got through the barrier?
Well, you know what? Oh man, yeah. So back then it was all about the personal stereo. You know, everybody got their phones now, innit? Yeah.
I know where this is going.
Before that, you had mini disc. Before that, you had the CD Walkman, but before that was the original tape cassette, the Walkman.
Walkman, man. XBS.
So, so I remember it was when I was at school. It was the hip hop was. So we had. I was a big lover of 80s soul. So you know, like your loose ends. Oh man, just thinking some of the stuff like mid to late 80s, you know, that kind of vibe. And
is
then,
just before Soul to Soul, ain't it? Just before Soul.
yeah, exactly. So you kind of a lot of your American stuff. I'm thinking I could tell you names like there was a British group that I didn't realize they were British, but I think they may have been from Manchester. 52nd Street.
Okay.
And yeah, and they had a, you know, that sort of era. It was 80s soul. It was just, you know, 12-inch vibes, you know, that kind of thing. And but I remember a friend at school, he had the Public Enemy tape. And I just used to remember hearing Public Enemy, and I'm like, you know, it was just, it's nothing like you ever heard.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, can you do that for tape? Yeah, I'll do it for you. Give him a tape.
Oh,
I remember.
High speed dubbing it. High speed dubbing it. High speed.
Yeah. But you know what? You know what was interesting? Around that time, so I had the tape, and I had a few tapes, and as a family, we, by one of my sisters, we went to Jamaica for the first time.
Okay, cool.
Late 80s.
Yeah.
And that had a profound effect on me musically.
Okay.
Because for growing up, it was like, at the time, it was just like reggae was Bob Marley, and that was it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's church youth. That's all we had. Yeah.
And we wouldn't really hear our musicians do it justice. And what we would hear is American musicians, and when they play reggae, you knew that it's like, come on, man, please leave it alone. Leave. Because it didn't have that authenticity. And going to Jamaica, hearing Sanchez, hearing obviously, you know, Stitchy, but back then it was Lieutenant Stitchy.
Yeah.
Super Cat. You know, Shabba. Oh man, all these, you know, Barrington Levy, all these singers and artists that were coming around late 80s.
Yeah.
And just the different vibe of it. And my auntie had a shop, and she where my family's from, and I remember it's like
which part of Jamaica your family's from? Which part of Jamaica your family's from?
Oh, this Manchester Parish.
Manchester Parish. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So literally, it is cool. You know,
Yeah.
we got up Spur Tree Hill and that.
Yeah,
so
man.
I went there, and I brought So I was like, yeah, let me put my tape in. And my aunt must have think, with this English boy, you know, come with them foolishness, man. You know, because it's like, I was there playing Run DMC or something like that. You know, it's just. But I was thinking, yeah. But that trip, I'll tell you, just gave me. I put it this way. People were listening to reggae and dancehall before, but I just didn't understand it. Then when I went there, I fell in love with that music.
Serious.
You know, and it's just the only way I could describe it. That whole period of 80s into 90s, it was the creativity. It was, you know, just something that was different. And you had the issue sometimes, you know, the way dancehall music can be, you know, and then you have like the whole kind of way, the slackness, and then the god time as they call it. Yeah. So, you know, for me, some of those kind of conscious and, you know, like lyrical, like I remember we used to play Buju, Good God of My Salvation, you know, and things like that. And, you know, think, okay, I can incorporate that into what I'm doing. And it was just incredible, just remembering that. But my kind of journey, so then obviously the influence, what was happening. So I was influenced a lot through DJs playing on pirate radio.
Right.
And then
that's the thing. So what was your, because we had PCRL up here, what was your pirate station down in Bristol?
Wow. Well, before that, I remember PCRL. Yeah. And you had Bad Radio. That was kind of one of the first.
I know, it's terrible.
And that, I think, what's the name for that?
Do you remember the frequency? Do you remember the frequency?
Bristol Authentic DJ. Don't get me.
Okay.
You know, it might even be Bristol Authentic DJs.
Yeah.
But then you had like stations like Spec FM, which was like St. Paul's and Eastern Community.
Okay.
Then you had Magnum as well, Black FM, Passion FM, and there was a station that then became legal, FTP, that was really popular. And that was probably the first station I ever heard, like locally, that I heard a gospel show on.
Okay.
Before it was pirate, and then I got a story about that actually.
Yeah,
so
go on, talk to
you know,
me.
and after big.
So what year? What? When's this? This will be in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. So this was so. What happened? This was about 89, the late 80s.
Late 80s.
Yeah. And then what happened? A load of stations, if they wanted to go legal, they had to go in for a tender, and then they went. And 1990 was when the stations launched that were successful. So FTP was one of them, and I used to listen to that a lot. And then what happened? I think the presenter who was doing the gospel show was looking for somebody to assist, just to help out with the phones and things like that. And my sister answered and basically got in touch, and she started doing it. And because of my passion for radio, so you can imagine the radio show was like 6 o'clock until 9 or 10.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So you know, how we get kind of typecast into a certain time period for gospel music, and I can't remember as a youth. I just woke up and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go along.
Yeah. Straight.
So, so because I was just fascinated with how radio worked. I just thought, even then, it was just like, how does this thing work? You know, you're in one room and you're kind of then into loads of other rooms, you know, in people's houses. You're in cars, you know, and people kind of get to hear what you're playing.
Wow.
And for me, I just found that just fascinating.
Yeah.
So it was, what's his name? Reverend Dexter Edmond. So I've not seen him for donkey's years. So I was only a little. Yeah,
Dexter Edmond. Okay. Yeah. Recognize that name, bro. Recognize that
exactly.
Name. Yeah.
So he used to do a show on there, and back then it was like a lot of basically traditional gospel. So they would so these guys would obviously get all the promos and everything and the records and stuff. So there were some things. It was like, so I was in there and I was like, wow. You got the Winans, it's time 12-inch.
Yeah, man.
Didn't see it for the life of day, you know, because, you know, I suppose if I was living in London at the time, then, I probably would have got access to that. But the way the music worked, or you would have to kind of have relationship with the record shops in order to kind of get access to that, and record companies. So I remember just getting that, and then I was like, you know what, I want to get a recording of that. So I got the 12, the whole of the 12 put on tape.
Okay. Yeah. How we do it?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every single mix. It's like, as I look back, I have to laugh. But I was a kid, you know. So, you know, all these different mixes, and it was Teddy Riley who produced it.
That's
and obviously the stuff that Teddy Riley was doing. And at the same time, that was an era that I went to a church camp, and that, ironically, that album Return was the very first record that I purchased. Winans Return. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's that time to make that change. People today,
that's right.
Yo, you can tell we're for the same year because listen, there's only one rapping gospel. Yeah.
It's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was an album, you know, bro. And the thing is, it was Winans, that was an undercover urban track, you know, album that was, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because when you listen back, straight up, and you say Teddy Riley produced it, and that's interesting. Straight away, you're going into DJ vibes now, because you start to recognize sounds and producers and noticing, okay, this is kind of different. And that's when you started hearing instrumentation that was totally different to the Edwin Hawkins that were behind them, was very more I said natural instruments, but organic instruments. And these guys started to mix with top, because we know what Teddy Riley was doing at the same time, man. He was with Blackstreet, you know what I mean, going on to some Guy at the time, you know, and so on like that. So, you know, you got these guys who are doing that, and now because gospel's getting so big in America, they were doing gospel tracks. So all of a sudden now, there's a change now where likes of Winans, you know, BB and CC Winans kind of flipped the script, and this whole, in inverted commas, contemporary gospel, we call it, you know what I'm saying, started flooding in, you know what I'm saying. But I still go in, hold on a second, as much as you like that album, I actually, hearing your story now, what I've picked up, bro, I actually understood how you can interpret music outside of gospel and bring it into your sets. Because for you to observe, I'm thinking, when did you grow up, like, be in that environment? But it's like when you went to Jamaica and you're listening through, you already had inputs and you was already thinking about, okay, I could play something, because you're infamous, bro, of just playing. You brought in stuff, and you play vinyl, and then you'll bring in a popular theme, and I was like, yo, I know that, where do I know it from? And then you'll snap it back out, and everybody, yeah. So I like the way you did that, and I can get straight away your mindset was picking up when you was in the West Indies, listening to the rap stuff, going to hear and let's be real, guys, Caribbean guys that were moving to America were leaders in the rap game, you know. You know what I'm saying? I believe, is it who's that original DJ guy that they said that hip hop come from? He's from Trinidad. DJ Cooper. Yeah. And you got him himself, Biggie, Jamaican. Even when we talk about Shine, as he's from Belize, which is basically Caribbean. You know what I'm saying? You know, you got all these guys that are going to America. Heavy D, Caribbean as well.
Heavy D from Mandeville, Jamaica.
Wow. So you're hearing, and they will say, I've watched some documentaries, and they said the West Indians just came with a different vibe. They did the rap, but they came with some Busta Rhymes, you know what I mean, West Indian parents, Jamaican parents. So these guys were coming into New York, flooding the place, and actually being leaders in that area. So I'm going, hold on a second now. You are absorbing all this music in your teens, yeah? Your teens. Now, in Bristol, where there's, you got the radio station going on, you got the local radio station, you're sneaking in and whatsoever. So who asked you to play some tunes and said, and you felt sweet doing it? Somebody must have said, you must have some opportunity to go into a party or a church party or something. What? How did you get that opportunity?
Wow.
Because you had to push yourself, man. Because there weren't many platforms for that.
Okay, so the college I went to, I was just ready to leave school when school finished. The college I went to, they had a radio station there, so they had a radio studio, and it wasn't being used, and that was like, wow, they've got turntables here. And his pitch, it wasn't Technics. I was like, oh, I wanted Technics. Technics was a thing for me. It was just like, oh, I want Technics. And it took a while, you know, many years before, because, you know, at the end of the day, I couldn't afford it.
Yeah, straight.
What was really, you know, amazing about that time is that there was, you know, when you're at school, when you get to college, you then start to meet other different people as well.
Yeah, of course.
And there were songs that really kind of hit me from pirate radio. One of them, still, you know, I listen to a lot of music, and you know, for me, I love the art form of DJing and just to express it musically differently, take people on a journey. So yes, you have the kind of gospel, but also there are other music genres as well.
Yeah.
So one tune for me that pirate radio made huge back then, but it was still an underground tune, and it was a big anthem for pirate radio stations, was Misha Paris, I Should Have Known Better. And it was produced by Omar. If you know, you know, right? It's one of those. You'll know. It was one that was a B-side of a single, and then the pirate radio just took it and went with it.
Yeah.
And that's what used to happen. I used to hear it up and down the country. And I remember going to a record shop, and I used to go record shop all the time in town. And they were just shutting, and I didn't get a copy of it because I was like, I didn't see it. I didn't know where it was, because a lot of the time back then, it's not like now where you can kind of just Shazam and I've got that now, and you could just type in and you could just look at it. That's the track. No. You know, DJs, if they were playing, if they had white labels, they would obscure the label. Or if they had something exclusive, they would obscure the label so other people wouldn't know what they were playing. And that particular track, I was in a record shop. The record shop was closing. Then the guy who worked in the record shop, I was about to go out the door, and they was about to lock the door. And then I heard the intro, Take It Away, and then dum 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 dum. I just turned back and I said, I need that. And so I had that, and then it was like I was using that and was practicing. And I can't remember if it was that tune, but I was trying to learn to mix, and I didn't know how. And what happened, I managed to play two tunes together, and they were in time, and I was like, and then there was a guy there. Bless, and I have to give him credit. His name's Adrian Stone, and he grew up in Bristol. He lives in London as well now, and he does a lot of work in terms of like he's like a black historian, so he looks at family trees and stuff like that. You know, really really good guy. And he said, Fitz, you were lucky then, but this is how you do it. So he showed me. And he was a DJ as well, and he would DJ on pirate radio. So I learned, and it was like, that's how you do it. Right. So then that's how I just started buying more records, and then I would just try and practice. So I'd practice at college because I didn't have the turntables at home. So I'd just take records. We'd play music during the lunch break. We'd have college radio. With
DJ Fitz,
and mum play music.
And mum and dad ain't listening, so they don't know what you're playing.
But that was how I was learning. That's how I learned. It's incredible. You know, as I look back now, I think. So that was kind of my introduction to it all.
Wow.
And I was also still listening to radio. And there was a guy whose show, and a friend of mine. And I used to pester him, and bless it, good guy. His name's Deli G. And he had one of the longest running dance shows in the country.
Okay.
And what would happen, his show basically would play like, he would be playing house. So house and garage, as it was known back then.
Garage.
So US garage.
Man. It's like four. They call it four. Is it four? There's 2-step and 4-step.
To the 4.
Yeah. So 4.
But then he would play like soul. So this is early 90s. The last half hour he would play soul. So I would focus. I'd be recording those things. Those sets, but I wasn't so interested in the house, ironically, considering a lot of people know me to play house.
Yes.
And I used to think, no, not interested. And it at the time, as I remember, late 80s, you had house tracks were coming through, and there was some that got into the charts.
Of course,
like 10 City, Marshall Jefferson, Frankie Knuckles. Some of that stuff, and they were good music, but I didn't really go into that field. And what happened, I remember I was at college, this is a different college, and there was a guy who knew I was into music, and he was into music. He was actually DJing at the time. This white guy, I think his name was Dom, and he said, "Oh, Fitz, you need to get into garage." And I was like, "No." He said, "I said no, I'm into gospel." He said, "Yeah, there's gospel, And I was like, listen to his hands up. I was like, this man don't know what he's talking about. There ain't no gospel in garage.
You know what I'm saying? Yo,
listen. That's why I said, sometimes your mind can limit you.
Yeah, 100%, bro.
And that was hands up. That's my confession. So I didn't know. Wow. He was telling me, yeah, this is. So as I listened to, so where the change came for me, when it came to kind of like the house and garage. So I'd hear it and I'd hear others play it and stuff but I was like, no, it's not for me. I was in Brixton.
Go on.
This is mid-90s, and I was walking and there was a shop called Red Records.
Okay.
Just on Brixton High Road. And as I'm hearing, all of a sudden I hear this bass line pump out. Yeah. And it was the intro of a Anne Nesby tune called Can I Get a Witness? And the way that bass just came, I was just like, yo, this is different. So I went back into the shop and I asked them. So then I bought it. And then I met a next guy as well, who was like, yeah, there's a lot of gospel house. And bless, he gave me some tunes, so some inspirational tunes to go with it. And that kind of helped start my journey in that field.
Wow. And you know what, bro? That's the ironic thing, because when you now, with the information we have now, you don't realize when you hear them bass lines in US garage, like, bro, that's straight out of church, bro. That's might as well to say they're calling in our musicians and says, yo, just do this. And I remember when my wife, when we started singing it, and I remember we went to the rehearsal studio, and they said straight, yo, we got any gospel vocalists? We got some house, you got some tracks to vocalize. Gospel vocals are the ones, you know what I'm saying? And that's had a source at that time, and then all of a sudden I see you got the light now. You got the house. Where did you practice? How? Because you got the radio. Did you have decks in your room? Did you have any, or you was that fortunate child who had a room to himself and a personal studio back in the day? Was it? I don't know if you was that bougie life you had, or you had to share between 15 siblings, like more like say how did you have the space to rehearse, practice at home, or where did you, apart from college, where did you practice? Because that's a lot of practice now, vinyls.
Yeah. So what happened? So skipping back a bit. So. My parents bought me a bass guitar and it was just lying there dormant. I wasn't using it, and I managed to scrape up some money to buy two turntables. One was belt drive, the other one was direct drive.
Okay.
And both of them had pitch, and it was just different pitch. And there was a store called Tandy.
Yeah, man, Tandy, man. Yes.
Yeah, Tandy. Yeah. If you wanted your electric stuff.
Yeah, man. Tandy.
You buy your tweeters, buy your Jamo speakers and all of that.
Classic.
So I bought one. It was a realistic mixer. It was basic, the cheapest that they had, because that's what I could afford. That's what I saved up, and that's what I used to thank the Lord, my parents, remember every West Indian household had their front room.
Yeah.
And so they hardly used it, and then I just set up camp.
No, bro, in the front room.
No, but to be fair, that's where the music was.
Yeah. So they said, hold the dance.
I just managed to create a little space, set up decks. And would practice, and that's how I practice. So literally I used to buy I would buy anything that was gospel related.
Yeah.
So I can remember, it's like, and some of these records I don't have anymore, but I remember even Inspirational Choir, they put out 12-inch Everything's Gonna Be Alright, and it was like I remember some of the tempos, and it's like, hold on, this doesn't seem right. It's like I'm mixing, and it's like it's going out of time. But because of the live instrumentation, the beat isn't computerized.
Wow.
So what happens with a computerized beat? It's going to stay constant.
Of course.
But when it's a live beat, you find that sometimes it can adjust, because obviously it's human. The human, it's not always going to be synced in time. So that's what I learned, and I think that was what was quite interesting about the late 70s. It was a lot of live instrumentation and musicianship. So if you could play and DJ that sort of stuff, then anything else is a breeze.
It breeze. That's so true. Yeah. That is so. Okay, so now I bumped into you. You're talking about 2000. So we're talking about mid 90s now. So so I'm trying to bridge the gap now. So mid 90s now. How did you? So for somebody like Rico to holler at DJ Fitz, how did you make a name for yourself in Bristol as a as a DJ, so people can call out? Because you were playing. Was it the fact? Because I remember at the time as well, people don't really realize there were a lot of pubs and clubs that would be cool for just DJs that play good music, or you could literally get sets. Did you kind of build up? Because I'm not being offensive to people down in Bristol, but I can't see in the 90s event for a DJ to almost develop in the Christian world. How did you get that readiness, you know what I'm saying, for that life? Because I saw Ready Fitz in 2000, you know what I mean? I didn't see a Fitz that learned just by playing in his mum place and doing that college radio. How did you get ready?
Okay, that's a good question. So part of me, I lived in London I studied in London.
Okay.
And that's when I was really kind of getting into music. I would say probably the last 2 years I would kind of start to buy music. There was, people that other students that they were DJing and stuff like that. And there was a lot of club events going on. So early on, I suppose my break always would come through playing parties.
Okay.
So, even to this day, I enjoy, a party. I think there's something special about a party, especially when it's like you've got your family, your friends, and it's just like people that are there for you. Yeah. Sometimes with some organized events, sometimes they end up being more about hype. Like, oh, you've got to enjoy this. This is great. This is incredible. It's incredible. I think of early on, it was like when I was in Bristol, I did a few parties. So my learning wasn't playing in the early days. It wasn't playing gospel. So I was buying mainstream music as well. And there was like friends from college. Bristol's like a small community, so there was this brother from church who's a blessing, Brother Lloyd. He was such a blessing to me and the family growing up. He was a musician, and he saw the kind of gift of music and encouraged me as well.
Okay, cool.
Brother Lloyd DaCosta, great guy. And I think he had a niece who I went to college with, and she sadly passed away. And I remember doing a party for her with somebody else. I was absolutely terrible. Beats clashing, all, you know what I
mean? Yeah.
So it wasn't, honestly, it wasn't the finished article. Hands up. Then even like one of my earliest memories of kind of doing something, I remember Howie Mack, he had a party. And his brother had to pick me up because I couldn't drive.
Okay,
so he had CD. I didn't buy CDs then because I didn't have a CD player. So I had vinyl, and we just kind of worked it through and stuff. And yeah, it was one of those kind of early times where it was just like, wow, this is different.
Yeah.
So, when you're young and you're doing things like that. But then I was kind of starting to journey to London. And we would go to some of the live shows. So that's when you had your likes of Watchmen and Gifted were doing stuff. So I used to kind of go and see what they were doing. And then later on, and then that was through a friend at the time called Joel. And after that, I was getting more and more interested in the music. And when I got to uni, had the first year, and then I joined the Christian Union.
Okay.
And
cool.
Then there was this guy telling me about, there's this girl that you should meet. She's really interested in music and organizing stuff. And we met, and it's interesting because that lady's now my wife. And yeah,
I was gonna say that in my head. I actually thought that. I thought he ain't gonna say that.
He
ain't gonna say that. Yeah.
What was a blessing? Like, to my wife's credit, even before I knew her, she was organizing her concerts.
Wow.
She organized a concert in her own college.
She's
so
yeah.
So I think what that period was about is that we were kind of thinking, okay, how do we kind of get this message about Jesus out there through music? And that's what we did. So we looked at that, and we looked at any avenue. So we did a gospel concert. It was, I think it was in mid-90s. I think Watchmen was on there. We had Ibe.
Yes, Giant Killer.
Yeah. Who else? They were they were called The Presence then. So you had a guy called Paul Anointed.
Okay.
Warrior.
Yes.
Was there. Yes. Yeah. And singers. It was just, to be honest, when you look back and you think, wow, we just got on and did it. I remember, I think maybe Stella, because I knew Stella back then as well. Stella, who sang as well. And we just kind of carried on. We didn't organize like events after. I kind of started to DJ and just kind of carried on with the DJing. So the way it kind of worked, and also tying in as well, a lot of interesting things happened. So whilst I was at uni, I feel like I'm jumping around.
No, it's cool. Bro, listen, man, this is the first time you're coming out with the truth, man. You know what I mean? It's coming out the chest, man. It's coming out, man. It's coming out. Yeah? It's cool.
So I also got involved with Notting Hill Carnival then as well.
Oh, okay.
So there was outside, because the place that was right at the entrance of Carnival was Kensington Temple KT.
Okay.
Church. And I think in '94 they had a concert just outside the grounds, but the following year they had a truck, a float.
Okay.
And I remember seeing something and that, I'm saluting people like Marcia Dixon, because they've been around for, doing stuff, especially like The Voice.
Back in the day. Yeah, that's all I remember. Yeah.
It was what we went to find out what was going on, and so there was some information that there was going to be got a float going out, and I remember coming down. I was supposed to be looking for some accommodation.
Yeah.
For when I was studying, and then I basically ended up saying, "Oh no, this is long." Bank holiday Monday, man. What was I thinking? So I said, "Oh, let me go to see what's happening over at Notting Hill at KT."
Yeah.
I got there, and I bumped into Stella, who I knew, and a guy called Adrian, who's her husband now, and they were on the truck. And then all of a sudden I was chatting, and then it was like, oh, the truck was stationary.
Yeah.
Then the truck started to move. So we found ourselves in the carnival, and there was a DJ playing, and that turned out to be Vinyl Preacher. This guy who, I think,
I remember that name.
So Richard White, Vinyl Preacher.
Richard White. Yes. Yeah,
so
I remember him.
What happened? We were in the carnival. The DJ was playing, and they had like different percussion, but there was no interaction, so there was no
mic man.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Mic man.
It needed a mic man.
It
needed a mic man. And
this when the Jamaican of you came out. Yeah, like, yo.
But Roger, listen. I was like, I used to do bits of radio, but I used to hate the sound of my voice.
Okay.
And ironically, listen to it.
Yeah.
It has to be good, because the voice said, grab the mic.
Yeah.
And before I could question it, I actually grabbed the mic.
Yeah.
And I had it in my hand, and I started to speak, because it's like, it needs some atmosphere.
Yeah, man. Hype. Yeah.
And hyped it, and then it was just like, wow, what had happened here? So what was incredible, I didn't know who was organizing it.
Okay, cool.
So I had to jump off the truck and make sure I got my coach back to Bristol.
Yeah, of course. Right? Yeah, of course.
And then there was a meeting later on. This is a few months after, about Carnival, which I went. And the organizer, and I know, and I've known her for years now, Angela, who's involved in Carnival and Arts Alike, which I'm part of over the years, doing gospel outreach. And she didn't realize who it was who was on the mic. She didn't know until I said, "Oh, it was me." So over the years, it's like little things had happened that it's like, I've been in this spot at this particular time, or doing that thing at that particular time.
Yeah.
And that has kind of helped to harness who you are, your
sound, your vibe, your DJ Fitz. Yeah. Because I can see it from the radio side, just being at college and having a radio station, understanding the principles of radio. You go in and undercut basically the television sister, and literally going to the gospel show and seeing, that sort of things. Going to Jamaica and absorbing a culture, a sound, a vocal, because that's what the kings of the DJing, the rapping, the toasting, the whatever, that vibe that makes just a rhythm. Because one thing with dance, one thing is that's the only way you can get one rhythm, and you could play that for about 2-3 hours, and there's so many voiceovers. It literally like the same rhythm will be playing to this very day that was created probably 2-3 decades ago, and they're still getting high off that same rhythm, and it's amazing what they do. But it's the passion of the voice, and it all is making sense. And you know what's making sense, guys, as I'm going through this journey now I never knew much apart from what I said at the beginning about DJ Fitz, because all I know is a man from Bristol. I didn't even know he's from Prophecy. My wife's from Prophecy, and I went Prophecy for a number of years, so I know the Prophecy guys, so it all kind of makes sense of what he's saying. But you know what's actually really, really crazy cool? This was almost a build-up to actually a guy what nobody knew that had radio experiences, musical experiences, had knowledge of the wider black music field. It gave you the ability to walk in a space of BBC One Extra. Now, before you got there, I'm seeing you do events, and I know you're the guy who will mix, house tracks, bringing gospel. Feel no way of going to US garage, as he would say. You know what I'm saying? You flip towards that, but you had the knowledge of gospel music, the Winans, the Commission. You had that knowledge, and it's like you could move in them areas with a whole heap of knowledge, and you was gathering that for a number of years. And then it's like, and I'm seeing you being caught up and doing it, Chicana, and you still came with that vibe of edginess, and that's the best way I could describe it as a DJ from my perspective. Come there, you was edgy, because even though you were playing music where you're going, okay, that was not our music, it wasn't quite our music, it was it was the new creations of the UK born kids or the next generation music, and you're thinking, are you gonna play this? But how did now you get to space in 2000, coming up to early 2000s, of this rumor started hitting the world around about 2001. I remember. Send your I don't know if it's 2001 or 2002. I can't remember. It was 2002 when there was rumors, but the people were putting out, BBC One Extra is looking for a gospel DJ, yeah. And I remember when people were talking about it, saying, "Oh, you should apply." Not to me, because I weren't in that world, but and I remember when you got it, yeah. And I can say it now. People like in my neck was like, huh? DJ Fitz, and I can imagine from Bristol in London. Bro, I'm just giving 100, bro. Man, people like he's from Bristol and he gets into BBC One Extra. What does Bristol know about gospel? What, you know me? And there was that ignorance, because people they wanted that role as well, yeah. And let's be real, that's what people are going. Oh, what, you can't say that? Yes, I can say that because no one's gonna shoot me now, and I heard it from people's mouths. Yeah. Now, getting that now. How was that for you as a person now? This is the gig of all gigs, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because you're back home in Bristol, I believe, yeah? And I know you're probably to and fro from London because of, uni and life and whatsoever, yeah? And now you got the gig. You know what I'm saying? The gig for our generation, that's that gig, bro, because that One Extra was embracing garage, UK rap. You know what I mean? Just the everything else after what the traditional radio guys were doing in the 90s, 80s, old soul, old gospel, old this. Now you've got a platform that was going, play drum and bass gospel, play this, play that, play the latest. How was that? How was that feeling? And that process?
You know what? Wow. Yeah. So I think at the time I was nervous, very nervous. How it all kind of came about. I realized that I was on a journey, and you know what? Sometimes when you recognize when God's got something for you, He's got something for you, and it's quite challenging because if people want the same thing. And I understood, it was, I'm not the guy who's kind of like, okay, I need to be center stage. That's not me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not interested. I can just hold a corner.
Same it. Yeah.
It's not me, If I need to do something, then I have to do it. But I'm pretty kind of chilled in that respect. From a musical standpoint, and I think even my personality sometimes, I don't know if it's my personality, but my nature, it kind of goes against the grain of what sometimes DJs kind of are, because it's like sometimes it's about being all out there and being, the loudest. And sometimes I can be loud and what have you, but it's not really me. I remember how I got chosen. Literally, they were looking for a DJ. Obviously, they were scouring and they couldn't find what they were looking for, and people had gone in. Some people at the time were, probably yes, disappointed, gutted it wasn't them.
Yeah.
I think what the blessing was for me is the journey that I had. So my journey was that I would go to Birmingham. I mean, I'm not even really gone into that aspect of when I used to come up to Birmingham and Shekinah and how I met, a lot of the guys and stuff like that. So I had a grounding for years developing, music, trying things, things kind of not working, trial and error and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Being I was always, as a DJ, I thought of as an art form, it's about creativity and doing stuff that's different. And I found that, if we're gonna do this, we need to rep it properly.
Yeah.
because the thing that I always saw is that people had a lesser opinion of gospel. And I'm like, no, that shouldn't be the case. So I felt pressure because it was like, you know what? I need to make sure the levels are up there and make sure that I can stand up next to your Rampages, your Ronnie Harrells, your Robber Ranks, you know, or the guys that were there at the time, and make sure that I don't look out of place.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a poor substitute. So that's the pressure I felt. I'm grateful because you know what I was able to do through that. People still to this day say, Fitz, man, what you know, what's going on? And I get that. You know, I think, you know, for those who are kind of coming and doing their stuff now, credit to you. Yeah. You know, but back then it's like we had to have the bar so high. Yeah,
100%.
And I was learning on the job. I really was.
Okay.
I think, you know, when I first started, I think the benefit was that I could DJ, I could play it in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
So I had to learn a completely new skill. And when I say, even though I was doing radio, trust me, there was BBC producer standard radio.
Yeah.
You need to hit this. But thankfully, I think because of the amount of radio that I listened to growing up,
you kind of knew
I could hear about how to engage with an audience. And it's only at the time, you know, you have to remember, it's just like coming from Bristol and you know, there was, you know, you're from country, you know, classic.
Yeah, of course. Classic. Yeah, man.
Classic. They'll say you're from country, right?
Straight.
And they're not even big Birmingham. It's like, come on, foolishness.
Yeah, man.
But this is the kind of mentality you've got to deal with, and
I think,
you know,
that was a major problem for us, and this is one of the points that I really want to get across to people. Now, this is not no dirtying out people at the time or whatever, but this is the fact is that we had to fight to go out and had to fight from within, yeah. And what should have really happened, and this is just hindsight, yeah, is that obviously now I know it's not like for me, I won't really. Media wasn't a thing for me then, because it was a few years later then I came up with Gospel Link magazine, because my frustration of the biasness towards the Midlands against everybody else that I saw from ironically, you know what really spurred me, and this is nothing against the Voice at the time and their stuff. I remember we released a single at the same time as Sinai, yeah. So Sinai released a single and D released a single, and we had the drum and bass track on there and everything still, yeah. And Sinai, and Sinai, and this Sinai, they don't get twisted, people. They were kicking, but that first single was almost like church musicians doing the production, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Which it was all right, you know what I mean? I think it had something that was nice in it. It was okay, but it's like it got praised like it was a beautiful, like amazing piece. And I was talking to Mike Riemann at the time, you know, the late Mike Riemann, and he was open question. He's confused. He said, "That's no good. What you're doing is excellent." And I thought, he says this continual biasness. He saw it from a different perspective. Was against, so that inspired me to do Gospel Link magazine, and that's and it's nothing against what was going on in London. It was fresh to see somebody from outside London, from my perspective, going into doing. But did we support you? You know, I don't know how we could, especially then we didn't have no MySpace and Facebook and all our business really going then. But you're doing a radio in a space where, to be honest, I don't think the community supported you enough. If anything, the community was almost leaving you high and dry to fail. And that's just me knowing the community. That's just me knowing the community. And they could say, no, Roger, that's harsh. But I'm saying, I always said, the Westwoods of the world, you know, I'll probably get, you know, people are not allowed to say his name, but he's been cancelled or whatever. But the Westwoods of the world, the rap community backed him, Yeah, the Ranagan of the reggae. You know what I'm saying? He can go to Jamaica, get all the dub plates he needs, and comes back over because that community supports him, appreciates him in their platform. I don't know if you, and what I pick up and what I can see from the result of things, you might not have had that support, I believe, from the community. People could say being harsh, and that's my analysis. You could say, Roger, I had love and whatever, but I felt like whenever you did things back in that period, I felt like that spirit of, I could do better than that. I can do better than you. You know, I can do better than you. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I'm highlighting this is that we don't do this again. That we stop doing this. That we stop doing, because, you know, we're able to have this conversation, but nobody, imagine, bro, I'm the first. You're saying it's the first time somebody said, "Yo, Bridget, let's record a conversation with." That to me is confusing, absolutely confusing. You know what I'm saying? If you on a platform which, for next generation Caribbean youth in this country, first generation African youth coming up in this country, was the platform. It reflected us and what we're going at, the drum and bass, the garage, and all the different things that we couldn't really play loud in church at a concert. We could hear that music there, and the radio was the place where you could hear music that you wanted to hear. You know what I'm saying? So we had a great platform. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know if I've been a bit harsh on the gospel scene, but I'm just being real of that period there when we were changing things and doing great things. I just felt like it never had, from my angle, being outside looking in. I always say, DJ Fitz, I always talk about you all the time. I said, how did the community mess that up? Not Fitz. And then people say, Roger, why are you being harsh? I said, bro, the community messed that up. We never galvanized. And that was my perception. And I'm from out of town. You know what I mean? I don't know if that summing up, I can get shut down for that one. But that's what I felt.
You know what? I think when changes happened, and you know, vibrations, basically the tie-in terms of when the show got terminated, there was a number of other presenters that left at the same time as well. So I say this, at the time, 1Xtra definitely had an identity crisis.
Okay, yeah.
You know, as a radio station, it was new. It was like, we want to do this, we want to do that. It's like, we're under pressure because we're being paid by license fee. We need numbers. We need to be able to say that we're reaching our target audience. I think it's even harder for them now because of the proliferation of media.
Yeah.
Look at, you know, how are young people absorbing their media these days?
Come on.
They're not going to the radio dial.
No,
I'm looking at my kids.
Yeah, but it's social media, mate. Social media,
it's different.
Yeah.
It's different. So back then, you know, even I think they made changes. Like there was a soulful house show, which was very popular.
Okay.
And it got chopped.
Wow.
You know, they wanted to refresh and I think now there's obviously a change because you've got, since the last, I would say over the last 10, 15 years, you've had a lot more of the young people. Remember, the youth, they all have grown up together. So the next generation, they've grown up with their friends. So you're kind of seeing your celebrities. You know, you look at Krept and Conan, for example. They're business people. They're, you know, credit to them. They do music, but yet they're opening up. They're proper entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
opening up supermarkets and all the things like that. Back then, it's like the one that I looked to, who I thought was just a real pioneer, who was probably just ahead of his time, was Jazzy B. Jazzy B when he blew up with Soul to Soul. He opened up a shop on Tottenham Court Road.
Yes.
Yeah? Those are some of the history that happened. But you know, it is about the support, and support. I think in some respects the program was probably too edgy for the church. You know, that's just
especially
I think you know it was. You know, I know it was. I know, because it was like literally it was something that was like, oh, this is, you know what I mean. You know, you're I was looked on as being young and edgy, but it was just that creative side. If we're gonna have to go into those sorts of places, then we're gonna have to, you know, what is it, to be wise as serpent and as harmless as dove?
100%.
You have to go in knowing how to our audience to be able to capture them. I was blessed with some of the feedback that I got.
Okay.
You know, and the blessing was, and don't get me wrong, there you know, it did have some really good supporters, and I met some great people through that. I have to think, you know, people like Yinka from UK Gospel, who was pioneering with that, and you know, before even that period, you know, relations. He passed away now, but Lucas Langdon, Await Records,
Await Records, yes. He,
you know, would kind of really, you know, would, and I knew him from, you know, and that guy was great to me, you know, in terms of, you know, the stuff that we were able to kind of do, and people that we met. He even linked me up with a DJ friend who, you know, who just got back in touch with me recently.
Okay.
From New York, you know, so it was like Dr. D, and I'm gonna salute Dr. D now. You know, these people who've been out there doing their thing for so long, you know, but at the same time, I have so much respect for people that I've been able to kind of continue and keep going and just keep going. You know, even for you, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy. I salute you, Roger, because you know, to kind of keep doing what you're doing, it's incredible. You know, you're working it. You're working it well. You know, and credit and salute to you. But yeah, I mentioned, you know, like Yinka. I've got to salute Mark Powerheart Music. There's so many other people, and as I'm mentioning names, I'm thinking, oh boy, there's people I've not mentioned. They're gonna say, how come you mention my name? And you know what? Even like the Shekinah guys, you know, salute them. They used to come on the show. I think of all the guest slots, the guest DJs that we had. El Nino, Mark Anthony, Divine Influence. Oh man, and guy used to do drum and bass, and he's actually gone clear now. DJ BC. You know, and he was a guy, and this was like, for me, this was quite interesting, and it's about the background that we come from. If you know, I've not spoke to him for donkey's years. I've not seen him or what have you, but I was blessed to know that he's kind of still continuing, and he's made a serious name for himself in the drum and bass arena.
Cool,
you know,
check out his stuff.
And that was an initial platform for him.
Yeah.
You know, when he started, and he's, you know, you can kind of search up his stuff on Spotify and things like that. You know, it was just, we just did what we need to do. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was an opportunity. Okay. I'm also gonna salute good friend that I met, Bernard. When I was at One Extra, and Bernard went on to do a lot of production.
Well, I'm thinking for big bass man Bernard. Yeah. Actually,
do you know what I mean? You know, and we was able to kind of, he understood, you know, what I was working with at the time, you know, and the kind of ground I was treading, and you know, believe you me, I found it a challenge. I found, you know, whilst I was doing the show, there was some of, like, for example, some of the production stuff would kind of have kind of opinions, say, Fitz, what's wrong with some of your gospel community? And
Wow.
I understand from both sides, because it's like, if you're not getting no opportunity, and then you get somebody's knocking, boy, this is the only time I'm gonna eat, so I'm gonna eat well. So I was having to walk a tightrope, and then try and show the best side of the scene to our producers, to the station bosses and things like that.
Of course.
So, but what was a blessing, one of the original guys who kind of had the idea for the station, he actually loved my show.
Good.
And there was times when he would ask, he said, Fitz, what's that track you played? And that was just like a blessing to me, because it's like, okay, you know what, my music is reaching, it's touching. There was people email, I remember emails would come in. One listener she would always tune to Manny Norte early on. So salute Manny's still going with Capital Xtra.
Okay.
Salute, that's what I mean. Is that when he was on One Extra at the time, and then she then started to listen to my show, and then she sent me an email and said, Fitz, listening to your show made me realize how long it's been since I've been to church. And I'm like,
wow.
Do you understand? So you're really kind of in that space.
You really don't know any.
You don't know what you're doing and where it's touching.
It's like that wine. It's like that wine and song. You may never know. You may never.
Yeah, it's 100.
It's
100.
It's quite
100.
It's quite deep.
And I think as well, with that, it's human nature. I think people kind of get caught up in titles and endorsements, and life's bigger than that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I've been there, I've done that, but it doesn't mean to say that I'm any less without it, if that makes sense.
Of course.
And I think for anybody who's coming up, who's trying to do things, and look at how you can make a difference where you are. Use what you've got. Just use the little that you have. Practice, be diligent with it, practice, and then see where it takes you.
That's blessed, bro. And I think, and I know, like, and I want to encourage you, bro. I know there's more in your in your journey, more in your story to come out. But what I've learned from this is the fact that which I didn't know before, how it's almost like God was working on that whole element of yourself, the radio, the DJing, and the inquisitive element of yourself, because we grew up in church, bro. We weren't built to a lot of people, when they did stick the nose over, they kind of never came back to church again. But you kind of stuck, you was inquisitive, you was wise, you where I was more like, okay, that's secular. Yes, I listen to the stuff and know stuff, but I wouldn't really. My focal point is always, it's always been central gospel. But the thing is, the way you were so inquisitive, and being able to learn from that, and from very early, just really understand the sound of music in the UK in the 80s. Because every time I talk to you, when I talk to you, you have a knowledge of music knowledge, and that's important when doing radio, when doing having such a strong position that you did have in BBC One Extra. And what I want to really emphasize is probably that's one of the most top positions we've had in media in UK gospel history, and whether people like to hear it or not, that's what it is. I know people said, yes, I work for BBC, being a producer, this is all great, and I don't want to belittle anybody's input. They've done documentaries, they've done this, they've done that, fantastic. But to be a presenter on a flagship show like that, bro, is one of the most important shows in that period of time for our generation. And I want us to be back in these spaces, but we need to learn, you know what I'm saying, and understand what has put DJ. People they want to get DJ software, press sync, and then go to Tidal and then think they're going to make it as a DJ on BBC One Extra. It is a lot more than that, and I find that the average age of DJs are going more high, is getting older, just for the fact that basically you got a set of DJs that you got to understand the music, you know what I'm saying? And because people don't understand the music at such a young age, they're not in the environment to understand the music. They just look at Tidal, they play the tunes, they like this, they like that. But when you get in a vinyl as a child, you open up the sleeve, you look in the inlay, you're looking at names, you get to understand the vibe, you appreciate the music, and you appreciate the fact that basically you're getting a vinyl. Yo guys, that there's a skill and an art to lift up the vinyl. You don't want to scratch the vinyl. There's, you don't just push forward and backwards, push forward and back. Cassette tapes, you had to listen to the tracks, you had to guess where tunes were, you know what I mean? You had to do B side, A side. All these different things was part of that influenced the way we understand music. And bro, no, if no one's gonna say, I would 100% say, man, that you did proper what you guys, you don't have to realize, man, I remember some clean moments like in my life when it came to shows, and DJ Fitz, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna hopefully in a month or two, I'm gonna get DJ Fitz back on, because we're gonna have fun and play back some of that set there still, yeah. And what will happen as well, guys, yeah, I'm gonna what's gonna happen with his whole journey of recording, you're gonna have things that you've got to go, Roger, I've got more notes on this, yeah, because I understand that people might want to come back on just to clarify certain things and link stories even more. Just by you mentioning Gifted, I haven't had Gifted, we haven't had a conversation with him at all, but I've never met this guy. But he's such an important part to UK rap, gospel rap, 100% in them early years and what he did. I'm not saying he's the main guy, he's the godfather, you know what I'm saying? But he potentially is, and that's what this is all about, putting out. But what's important as well, but it wasn't just rappers, it wasn't just singers. We had DJs, we had producers, you know what I'm saying? Radio presenters that pushed our art form. You know what I'm saying? The art form of urban gospel, who did shows where maybe people didn't really want you to play that sort of music and wanted whinings and a couple of reggae tracks, but no, you stood there and you played tracks that were edgy and ahead of its time. You know what I'm saying? Not even ahead of time, you was in time, but church was behind time, the community was behind the times, you know what I mean? And that's what it is, man. But yeah, bro, just to close off in what was the most memorable show that you've ever done, like as a DJ?
Oh man, there's memorable moments,
yeah,
and they're for different reasons. Right, okay, there was one I did in Bristol. It was an outdoor event, and it was connected with a radio station that I got involved with, which back then it was RSL license, which meant it was restricted service license. So it was a temporary station for 28 days.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Now, I did a couple of gospel shows on there. Managed to get in, who is it? It was the late Mikey Dread. Who was in Bristol. He was from, I think, Leeds, but very good broadcaster. I remember I used to listen to his radio shows, his reggae shows. Consummate broadcaster. And what happened, this was like mid-90s, so we were talking like, I'm thinking stuff that the world can understand.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't playing to a church crowd. It was outdoor. I was playing to dancehall people, people like their soul, everything, right? So I was playing New Colours at the time, and I remember this is even before he was named the Witness, right? So I called Witness down. So me and Witness was friends then, and that's a story, in terms of how I kind of got linked to a lot of you Birmingham guys and stuff like that. You know, that we'll have to probably go through that at another time. And you know, the whole Shekinah and that and all of that. So, but then he was called A+. So,
wow, it's cool.
You see, we're going back. We're going back. And what happened? I remember I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity to kind of get the gospel out there. And so I was playing some tunes, and I said to Witness, I said, it was A+ then. I said, yeah, come down. So literally, it must have been like £50 they were paying, right? You know, just expenses. But them time there, it was just like
big money.
Okay, £50. It was a bit more than what it is worth now. So part of that, I said, Witness, can you come down? And he would come, and you know, he was learning as he was going on as well. So I got him to come down, and we went and we did a set. So I DJ'd, and then I brought him in, and then he just started to kind of use the dancehall and Witness. And there was this guy, this white guy, and basically the place just went kind of quiet. Like people knew, oh no, you know what I mean? I can't escape this. And I remember this guy, he was like a traveller type guy from Bristol, well, around the West Country. You know what he said to me? He recognised that there was something we were doing that was different. And he said, it's always hard to swim against the tide.
Wow.
And I never forget that, forget that. And that just showed to me sometimes you have to kind of just push through. Push through, even though it may not go the way you expect it. People get what you're doing.
Yeah, man.
Other times, I think I've always had I love, like, you know, when I've got to play a set at Carnival. I think, you know, Notting Hill Carnival. Like, I think as a DJ, you have the opportunity to set the tone in terms of your music and your music selection. You can hype people up out of all proportion till they go crazy, or you can kind of take them into a place where they didn't realize what they had. So there's a couple of Carnival sessions. So like, I think with Arts Alight and High on Hope as it was, when me and Bernard played down there. Even played last year with Damien G and DJ Ty as well. But there was like times when like the police would come and, you know, say, and then they go, excuse me, can you tell me what track that is you're playing?
Oh wow, crazy. Yeah, man. Yeah,
I'm like,
good vibes, man. Good vibes, man. Good vibes.
And
man.
You know, one year there was ironically these two women that they would come to look for us where we were playing because they loved the vibe, you know. And every year they would come Carnival, so there was that. And I think I remember it was another time was like the God Corner early on.
Okay, yeah, God Corner.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah,
one memory was it was E minor as Ephraim on the mic.
E minor,
and he managed to get the crowd to do a 4-way electric slide.
Ooh.
Which was like on there might be a clip on YouTube or something. It was crazy. I remember DJing at that, and when I think I dropped, I just said, you know what, I'm going to come with a jungle drum and bass set. That was one, and yeah, the place went nuts, you know.
Yeah, man.
And the last one, I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay, cool. No, that's blessed, bro. That's blessed. Absolute blessed, man. And what I say, bro, listen, man, thanks for your time. And guys, you going like this, I think we scratched the surface. There's so much more memories, and I'm enjoying this journey. And Fitz is just enjoying to hear enjoyed, you know, hearing or bringing the links, the communities, oh my gosh, I get it. And sometimes when you look at your own life, you get stuck into, only special moments happen to me, and you forget that special moments happen to people, and the creativity, your background, quite similar in terms of church orientated like myself, and to see what happened in you could argue and say over a period of 10-15 years, 15, you can almost say more like 15 to 20 years. It was absolutely crazy, and I do not want your input to go missing. So guys, this is gonna be part of what I'm doing over the next few years, is documenting history, documenting current, and also at the same time finding efficient ways that young people can get access to it, because it's not just about putting things on mini disc. Nobody can listen to that now, so we need to be able to put that in a format that when we gone and didn't gone, they can see what input that we made. Amazing input, bro, in terms of gospel, UK gospel, that nobody talks about. You know what I'm saying? So nothing but love. And if everyone's gonna shoot me, go, oh no, I talked about Fitz, I talk about yeah, you can say all you want, man. I've got the receipt, man. We've recorded, we spoke to the man, and guys, I shouldn't even talk to him, mate, because he's a Liverpool fan. So why am I communicating with these guys? I should be cutting out Liverpool fans' input in the whole gospel wisdom. Marcus, you, I should delete you guys' input, man. Yo, only Man U and Arsenal fans.
You know what? I was gonna bring it up, but I thought that. You know what I mean? Man's been suffering like the children of Israel, just going round and round and round. And that's what the journey like. But you have to understand, we were there.
Yeah.
So we understand. So, but
listen, mate,
it's how it is, man.
But I have to go Liverpool to the Liverpool Gospel Festival as well. You know how hard it is, bro, to go there. To go Liverpool.
Oh, you know what? Is that definitely go? Because I went to one years ago in Liverpool.
Yes, I went to the one. You know, it's about 2 years ago, 2023, and I had it there. It was amazing. It was right next to Anfield, and they're having it again this year, May. First weekend in May or Sunday. They're gonna be having it in Liverpool, man. So it's definitely cool. It's definitely something where I see the new guys come up there. And it's the new guys, the scene today, the currents, and what's going on currently, and I think it's great. And I think for me, I'm trying to document current stuff like that, what we're doing now, so we don't get to the time that we didn't document what we were doing back in the day as much as well. So it's quite important. So it's there, but
agreed. Yeah, and you know what? It's important for the newer generation to kind of, because they got the energy.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, when you're young, you can do the amount of things you can do. Mate, when you're young, at it.
Yeah.
Kind of get on with it and keep going.
Do it hard, man. 100%. You work hard. You get it out, man. You sacrifice. You work on it, and you get there, man. But listen, guys, we have just spoke to DJ Fitz on this urban gospel reflection on my Ed show. This is Roger Moore, your host here on Affinity Xtra, and I've just talked to a pro radio DJ. You know what I'm saying? There's pros out here, man. So that's just dudes that's doing out here, man. We just appreciate the time, man. And again, we salute you, bro. And well done. You know what I'm saying, for what you've achieved, and hopefully, bro, again, we want guys like yourself still inputting, guiding, and just this video alone, I believe, will be a guide for many people to come. Trust me, my bro. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate it. And Roger, bless you, man. Keep up the good work.
Oh, most definitely, brother. Blessings, people.
In a blast.
Yeah, man.
Hey, this is your bishop from Rock Solid. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for clicking and subscribing, and also sending these videos to other people as well. We are so hungry to get your support. So remember, check us out on our website, and also check us out on Insta, and wherever you want to find us on Spotify. You can play us all day as well. And just make sure that you are supporting this channel, that we are developing our agenda towards music of black origin, and that is gospel music with a message. So please walk with us on this journey. Bye now.